This is Turd Flinging Monkey for TFM News. I'm going to be responding to an article in Mother Jones called Marriage is Declining Because Men Are Pigs by Kevin Drum. Now, this article is actually a response to another article from Washington Monthly by Annie Kim, who talks about the decline in marriage over the past few decades and blames it on education, whereas he blames men because he's a worthless mangina. So first off, Mr. Drum quotes the article he's responding to, the one from the Washington Monthly. He says, quote, "The seeming decline of marriage includes one major caveat: educated elites. When it comes to marriage, divorce, and single motherhood, the 1950s never ended for college-educated Americans and for college-educated women in particular. The share of young college-educated white women who were married in 2010 was a little over 70%, almost exactly the same as it was in 1950. It's also seemingly only Americans with four-year degrees or better who appear immune to the broader cultural and social forces eroding marriage. In 1950, white women with some college, such as an associate's degree, were actually more likely to be married than their better educated sisters. Today, it's the opposite. Though women with a high school diploma or less have seen the sharpest drop in marriage rates, the decline has been almost as severe and ongoing for women just one short rung down the education ladder regardless of race," unquote. Now that's the end of the article that he's quoting. Now here's his commentary about this article. And it's fairly short, I'm just going to read it and then we're going to talk about it. He says, quote, "Why has marriage declined in America? Here's my dorm room bull theory. It's because men are pigs. I know, hashtag not all men, blah blah blah. That said, let's unpack this a bit. Basically, an awful lot of men are, and always have been, volatile and unreliable. They drink, they get abusive, and they do stupid stuff. They're bad with money, they don't help with the kids, and they don't help around the house. They demand subservience, they demand sex, and even on the one dimension that they're supposedly good for, being breadwinners, they frequently tend to screw up and get fired. In other words, marriage has been a bad deal for women pretty much forever, but they've been forced into it by cultural mores and economic imperatives, and that's the only reason it's been nearly universal in the past. Nothing has changed much about that, but it's still a bad deal for an awful lot of women, but cultural mores and economic imperatives have changed, and that means more women can afford to do what's right for themselves and stay unmarried these days. But there's one exception to this: the college-educated. Well-educated men are fairly reliable. They have good earning power, they generally aren't abusive, and they've been willing, slowly but steadily, to change their habits and help out with kids and housework. For college-educated women then, marriage is a relatively good deal. For everyone else, not so much. And that's why marriage is declining among all groups except the college-educated. For an awful lot of women, it's just a lousy deal. They're tired of putting up with all the crap they get from men, and so they're opting out. They'll opt back in when men start to pull their own weight, and there's no telling when that's going to start happening," end quote, end of article. What a fucking mangina. But let's talk about this. So the original article is talking about how marriage rates are falling except among the college-educated. Now, college education equates to money. So rather than blame something like, I don't know, hypergamy, women feel safe and secure, quote-unquote, marrying someone who makes a lot of money, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a guy who makes money and has resources. Let me just explain what's actually causing this, because it's really obvious if you look at it. What is causing this isn't that men are pigs. It isn't necessarily even female hypergamy, although that is playing a part in it. But the real reason why marriage has gone to shit isn't even because of MGTOW or WGTOW or anything. It's because of the welfare state. Quite simply, welfare provides women an alternative to marriage. Now, there's a graph I'm going to put in this video called the welfare cliff, and it shows that a woman making $20-some thousand a year, but getting full welfare benefits, not including child support, just welfare benefits, makes the equivalent income of someone earning $65,000 a year. Because earning that $65,000 a year, you're also paying taxes on it. So the net income is equal to this person earning $20-some thousand a year plus the welfare benefits. Now, why is that significant? Well, the median income is only about $50,000. So a woman on welfare, making bullshit money working part-time, but getting all this welfare money, has a higher standard of living than someone in the median income, making 50 grand a year. And this does not include child support. So if you're a man earning 65 G's a year, which is good money, that's higher than the median income, you are actually still less desirable than her just going on welfare. She doesn't need you. The only time she'll actually stick around because you present a better option than just simply going on welfare and getting child support is if you're making 70, 80, 90, 100 grand a year. That's when she'll stick around. The so-called college-educated men, these guys making six figures or somewheres about, they're the ones the women want. And that's fine. That's what women want. Women are going to want what they're going to want. But don't blame men. It's not men's fault they can't compete with the welfare state. I mean, the median income is 50 grand. That's a lot of money. I mean, you can't just wake up tomorrow and say, okay, I'm going to go start making $90,000 a year. It just doesn't happen. Not every guy can do that. It takes a lot of work. It takes years to build that kind of wealth. But of course, it's all men's fault. We're not reliable. You drink. Fuck you. Now here's the sad thing. The thing about the welfare state is it is going bankrupt. It is absolutely going bankrupt. It's going to collapse. And all these strong, independent women who don't need no man are going to find out how much they need a man once those welfare checks stop rolling in. Now all these women who are like single moms or think they can make it on their own, quote unquote, I did a video about single moms a while ago and had some people in the comment section talking about how their single mom refused to take welfare and she worked 3 jobs and so on and so forth. Yeah, that is the extremely rare exception. A woman who just refuses to take welfare and would rather work 3 jobs than just sit on her ass and get showered with money. I can't think of too many people who would take that deal. Most people, if they're offered a bunch of free money, would just take the free money, especially now that the social stigma has been completely removed. I mean, I don't know what society or culture these particular single mothers were raised in, but most people, they'll take free money if it's offered to them. So you have these single mothers who take all this welfare, this child support, and they're living it up. This is the way it's supposed to be. They're strong and independent. Oh, thank goodness they have all these jobs and education and all this money being thrown at them so they can be strong and independent. Well, when the welfare state runs out of money, they have no backup plan. No backup plan at all. And you're going to see all this feminism bullshit just melt away like ice cream on a hot summer day. You know, back in the day, people used to talk about, oh, our children and grandchildren are going to suffer because of all this debt and all these unfunded entitlements. Well, we are the children and grandchildren. Social Security goes bankrupt in 2021, which is in 5 years. We're not talking 10, 20 years from now. We're talking 5 years from now, Social Security goes bankrupt. And the other entitlement programs quickly follow. And there goes the entire budget. So the government only has 2 options. They can cut benefits or they can raise taxes. Well, when they raise taxes, it's going to collapse the economy, and they're going to run out of money anyway, because you eventually run out of other people's money, and this thing called the Laffer curve, which would take too long to explain, but trust me, you can't tax your way into prosperity. And that's when everything collapses. That's when all these programs, by necessity, will be cut. And people will riot, people will throw stones, people will whatever, and it's not going to make a bit of difference. Look what happened in Greece. They rioted and everything, but the government didn't have the power to just create money from nothing. They had to borrow money from Germany, and Germany says, no, you're going to have austerity. So they threw all the politicians out and elected all new politicians who swore up and down they would bring the good times back. And when they showed up, Germany was like, nope, you're going to have austerity, or your government's going to collapse with no money. And they said, yes, ma'am. And they did it. And that's when democracy doesn't matter anymore, because the laws of economics will always trump laws of politics in the end. But that is the problem. That is why the marriage rate is in free fall. Because women want the top 20%. They all want a husband making 6 figures, which is not the norm. The median income is only 50 grand, which is less than what the welfare state offers a woman. So all she really needs is to find a guy who makes decent money that she can sperm jack and put on child support and then go on welfare. And she's living the high life. And fuck the guy. He's not going to see his kids. He's going to be called a deadbeat. He's going to be working all these jobs to stay out of jail. No one cares. Well, all that's going to change as soon as these programs start running out of money. These women realize they're the complete opposite of strong and independent. And this fucking mangina, blaming men for something they have no power over. They didn't do any of this. Saying they need to step up their game? Fuck you. Let's just take it one point at a time. In his little stupid mangina rant, he talks about how men demand subservience and they demand sex. Well, that's kind of what you get married for as a man. Now imagine if your wife was coming to you and she had these bills, these unpaid bills, these final notices where they're talking about repoing stuff and turning the power off. And she's like, hey honey, you gonna pay these bills? We're about to get our car repossessed. And he was like, I just don't feel like it. No, I got a headache. I don't feel like paying the bills this month. Maybe next month. Women would lose their shit, and they would probably pass a law to make that some form of abuse, so the man was arrested for domestic violence for not paying the bills or whatever. I mean, but this is what women do with sex. You know, there's all kinds of people, I see it all the time, where these husbands and wives are having marital problems, and they haven't had sex in months, or years. And that's perfectly normal. A woman could just turn off the sex spigot whenever she wants. There's nothing he can do about it. But he can't turn off the wallet spigot. He can't just stop paying his bills. He can't just put his wife out on the street and say, I'm not supporting you anymore, because he'll be thrown in jail for abuse. But she could turn off the sex for him, which is what he wanted to get married for in the first place, was to get the sex. She wanted the money, she gets the money. He wanted the sex, he doesn't get the sex. That's fair, right? Right? Yeah, fuck you. And this bullshit about, pulling your weight around the house, look, I'm very fair. If the woman pays half the bills and contributes half to the economic situation of the family, then the guy should do half the housework. He should help out 50% of the time with the kids if she pays half the bills and contributes 50% economically, right? That's fair. Now, if he contributes 75% to the family and she only contributes 25%, then he should only be doing 25% of the housework and she should be doing 75% of the housework. Makes sense? Now, if he's the one earning all the money, he's contributing 100% to the family's income, and she isn't contributing shit, she needs to do all the housework. That's her fucking job. She needs to keep the house clean, and she needs to keep his dick moisturized. That's her job. Unless she's contributing something to the family economically. That's fair. Now, of course, women are so entitled. They not only want the top 20% of men, but they want those men to do half of their job for them. Make all the money, and then also do half of my job too. But men still make this shitty deal. And this guy, this fucking man China, talks about how marriage is such a shitty deal for women. Are you insane? Yeah, you have guaranteed access to your husband's resources for the rest of your life. You don't even have to have sex with him. Oh, what a terrible deal. Oh my gosh. Terrible. It's so abusive, so patriarchal. No. Marriage is an amazing deal for women, especially now. They've been completely liberated from all of the expectations that were once put on women. And they have this generous welfare state, which gives them a back door. They don't need to get married to be taken care of because daddy government will take care of them. All men collectively, through their tax dollars, will take care of them. They don't need to marry one man, unless they can find one of the top 20% of men that makes six figures. Then sure, yeah, hitch your wagon to him, and then if it doesn't work out, he'll have to pay you alimony for the rest of your life. You win either way. You could cheat on him, doesn't matter. You still get alimony. Doesn't matter. Men don't matter. And it's all men's fault. Everything is men's fault. Men just need to step up their game, get college educated, start becoming mangianas like this fucking loser. And then, then maybe women will come back to the table. Maybe. And offer their oh-so-golden vagina, and they might have sex with you once in a while, if you're lucky, if you play your cards right. Just give them all your money, all your time, all your freedom, and do half their job for them. And maybe they'll let you put your penis in their moist hole. Maybe. No thank you. But I think it's interesting how we have a clear example of hypergamy. Clear, stark, in your face. Only the college-educated men are getting married because they have money. And rather than look at this as a clear example of hypergamy, it's men are pigs. Everything is men's fault. Hypergamy is men's fault. Everything is men's fault. I mean, I'm not saying the welfare state is women's fault. Men created the welfare state. So in a way, it is men's fault, kind of. Now, I also want to make the point that I'm not blaming the political left. I'm not saying if we got rid of the welfare state, women would become these meek, subservient little kittens. They would still be women. They'd still have hypergamy, and there'd still be innate gynocentrism and own group bias, and all these things we talk about in relation to female nature. The welfare state just gives them this environment where they are free to act on all of their worst impulses. And that's the problem. That's why the welfare state really needs to go. Not because it would make women better, but because it would prevent them from just exercising their hypergamy to the massive extent which they're allowed to now. Now, the bad news is there's absolutely nothing any of us can do to stop, repeal, reform, or amend the welfare state. It's absolutely here to stay. It's massively popular, especially with women. Women are the majority of voters. It's a done deal. The good news is it's going to collapse. It's completely unsustainable. This is Turfling You Monkey signing off.